she probably won't believe me. She'll be like, yeah, okay. I would just tell her just keep persevering, keep pushing. That's Sheena Me.
Well, maybe I'll try that $15 place.
You can see her full talk.
It's just, I don't know, maybe I'll try it.
By the way, the latest state to pass a clean
Start the engine.
is New York.
I should try
Show
that.
today, Audacious Solutions. I'm Eva Zamorodi, and you're listening to the TED Radio Hour from NPR.
At least I'll have a warm bathroom.
In celebration of Women's
this
History
is...
Month, St. Louis
See, this darn sun.
who made history in 1993 when she became
Put it
the
up
first
here
female
now. It was on the
fighter
side.
in the U.S. Air Force, logging over 300 combat hours in the F-15. She was the first woman to command a U.S. Air Force fighter wing and reached the rank of Major General. Leavitt was the role model for Captain Marvel and consulted on the film. General Leavitt retired in 2023 with a ceremony at Scott Air Force Base.
Women's History Month features on St. Louis Public Radio are sponsored by Locks of Glory. You listen to the TED Radio Hour.
I might have won 1,500 miles at con. 1,500.6.
Businesses develop their team's tech skills. They works offer certificates in IT, cybersecurity, and cloud security.
Still don't know what the temperature is going to be or forecast.
TED Radio Hour continues on St. Louis Public Radio.
Support for the TED Radio Hour comes from Dignity Memorial, helping families protect their loved ones and gain peace of mind by planning cremations and funerals in advance, dedicated to professionalism and compassion in every detail. More at DignityMemorial.com. From the Alfred Peace Foundation, supporting books, radio, podcasts, film, television, theater, and more to bridge science and the humanities. And from the listeners who support this NPR station.
It's the TED Radio Hour from NPR. I'm Eva Zamorodi. On the show today, Audacious Solutions. Bold ideas to solve some of today's most complex problems. And our next speaker knows his issue intimately. It's the foster care system in the U.S. A note before we begin. We'll briefly discuss child abuse and trauma.
You know, all my life I was always told that...
Yeah, he wouldn't have anywhere to go to the bathroom if I parked on his property.
Sixto Cancel doesn't remember a time.
And I can't expect him to offer me his bathroom in his
Foster care for me
house.
started out as an 11-month-old.
That would be kind of an
My mother
imposition.
struggled with substance abuse and poverty-related issues. And, you know, I was placed in the system.
If he knew me better, he might, but he doesn't know me that well.
My
I
other
mean,
brother and sisters, they all
can't expect him to.
Sixto was in and out of different homes. When he was 9, he was placed with a foster mother who ended up adopting him.
I remember being 9 years old.
Might have to make the best of it at that campground. Just give him $15.
In that moment, I knew that the answer I was supposed to say out loud was
Stay there.
yes. But in my head, I had always been a foster
Try to collect some geodes tomorrow to make up for the...
growing up in the system. I didn't even have an idea of what it truly meant to say, well, oh, here's my old in front of you. But I said yes. And at that point is when I started to experience more and more of the abuse until I was 13. I then ended up couch surfing because the abuse was so severe.
So did you leave your family? Did you run away?
There were times where I would just be locked out of the house for weeks at a time, and so that's how the couch surfing started. So I would have to find a place to go while I was being locked out. And that was like her beginning forms of punishment. And so I just kept calling the child welfare system, asking them to take me back. But unfortunately, they kept saying that what I was saying was substantiated, which means that we didn't have enough evidence for them to realize that I was telling the truth about what was happening.
Wait, so you're a preteen and you're calling and saying, I'm in a terrible situation, and that wasn't good enough? The fact that you were calling yourself?
Did we make a wrong turn?
Not only was I calling, but my school system was calling, my dance teacher and after-school programs were calling. I mean, there were several open and closed investigations. She would tell the police, or she would tell the
I remember
investigator
this.
that I was just acting up.
It's a
But it
intersection.
really took me having to like
24.
tape a recorder to my chest with clear tape.
What's the difference
And so
coming this way too? I
documenting
mean,
what I was
I
doing.
remember this now.
And that's when I had enough evidence to start saying, hey, here's what's actually happening to me.
Sixto's teenage years were even more chaotic. At one point, he was in touch with his siblings, and they came up with a plan to live together.
Yeah, I don't
older
know. I
brother,
mean,
we had met when I was 14, and he was saving money so that he could get an apartment.
it's gonna be a long night, eh?
Other brother out of foster
Either
care.
way, it's gonna be a long
And
night.
unfortunately, one day he was killed due to gun violence. And so, like, that was the day where, like, all hope of family kind of died for me.
Here's Six Door Cancel on TED stage.
Even without this, foster care is a tough experience. You don't know the path is going to happen to you. You're placed with a stranger and you're expected to become family. But if you don't fit in, if you act up a little bit too much, you will find yourself in a new home, new school, new rules and everything. When I was placed back in foster care at 15, I thought that was the end of my story. But it was just the beginning of the next one. Went to a few different homes, but unlike many, I was placed in a nonprofit program where I got ready to live on my own. The foster care system is not doing a good job of raising children. Unsupported foster youth are 2 to 3 times more likely to have negative outcomes related to homelessness, incarceration, being sexually trafficked. The mental toll is severe. Foster youth are 2 times more likely than war veterans to experience and suffer from PTSD.
And then they're likely to be in the army too,
These are really, really tough.
because that's where they often go to get
stressful situations. Like these
money
kids
and
are
stuff
in.
to fight.
How many kids are we talking about?
Yeah, sometimes people think it's a very small issue in the United States because the number of kids that are removed from their homes for either neglect or abuse is about 400,000 people every single year. But what most people don't realize is that foster care begins with a knock on your door by a social worker who comes in and asks you a series of questions. And they check your cabinets, they check the refrigerator. And if you answer those questions incorrectly or there's not enough food in those cabinets or refrigerator, then your child could be removed. There are 7 million children a year that are involved in the child abuse report. And so that means about 10% of all children in the United States are actually being touched by a child welfare system. I think it's very hard when you see a child who, maybe mom is sleeping in the car, right? And trying to get that third grade to school. And what do you do in that situation when our current other systems have failed, right? When you look at the housing programs across the country, sometimes there's too much of a waiting list. Shelters sometimes are packed out. And so what has happened is that when we don't have interventions for certain situations, then we default to the child welfare system to intervene. And so that's why child welfare has become one of the big responders to what I see as a lot of poverty issues.
Let's go to you in college when you came up with the idea for your organization, the Norths. What were you thinking? Were you like, okay, you know what? I am exactly the right person to switch things up.
So when I was in college, I didn't think that I was like the perfect person to like start an organization and then run with it. I kept bringing this idea of how young people can have voice and choice in what's happening to them in foster care. How can they do some goal settings to kind of make sure that they transition into adulthood with the supports that they need? And what I realized is that, the system is much more flawed by design. This is why I started Think of Us. Because this is the current result of the foster care system. It's designed wrong. I want to give you an example. We overwhelmingly heard from teenage foster youth that they were being displaced in group homes. The system was acting like they have nowhere to place these children. Turned around, we sent our researchers out, and what they were able to reveal was that the majority of those children actually had extended family members that they could have lived with.
So you've explained why kids are usually separated from their families. But what is it that you are reimagining?
Yeah, so imagine this. Imagine that, unfortunately, you have to come into foster care. But instead of immediately being placed with a foster parent, imagine that your worker is pulling out social media and looking through the adults who are in your life and saying, which one of these adults do you want to explore your living with? which one of these are your aunt, uncle, cousin, grandparents,